James Wellness. Thank you for joining me on my show today. Today I'm going to talk about, not about a specific wine, which I typically do, but to talk in general about the state of wine, where we are today, giving some perspectives, some thoughts, and so here we go. Stay tuned. So the reason I'm doing this is I've had some great feedback, and that was, James, it's great you do your wine reviews, but please give us some thoughts on your thoughts and where we are, maybe potentially in the wine world today, and any sort of highlight and top line items that might be of interest. And so I took that to heart, and I need to do this more often. Now the reason I haven't is I've committed to doing a good number of wine reviews and to do those via video, which of course I love doing. I love video, and I think it's a fantastic media. So to me, I thought that's really important. But first, a pit stop. Not a wine review. I'm just going to talk about this wine. This is Tenuta Sant'Anna. This is Prosecco. So, I need a little bubbly, as I do every single week. In fact, I have bubbly more than once a week, and I know that's a scandal, right? But it's a great thing to do, and it enlivens my spirits. So, just some perspectives. I'm going to talk, and down below, I'm going to put a list of specific topics, so you can actually, go to the next topic that you want, or, listen to all of it. It's up to you. Ultimately, when we started the summer out, we looked at, some easing of restrictions here in California as well as across the United States. It seemed pretty hopeful, I thought. It seemed like, okay, we've turned a corner, maybe things are under control or getting under control. And instead, that's not what happened, as you know. And I think to me, that's a really, terrible place to be. And it really speaks to, even in California, maybe if the federal government does not do any sort of, pandemic planning in the future or ever again, maybe we can actually do that, state by state. Or perhaps my dream is it's done maybe through, nonprofits with universities and so forth to create protocols. The reason I say that is very simple. Here in San Francisco, the Ferry building was closed, so all the merchants were closed down. And though they could serve outside or in a open space, they were not allowed to. It was actually closed down because I think it was classified as a mall. Well, classification should not be closing things. It should be, I could use the word common sense, but that's not going to mean anything to, maybe the greater view of things in terms of, how things are done on a city-county basis. What we should be doing is we should be looking at this in terms of how can we make a difference in making ease for our small business owners, even larger business owners, right? Making sure that they're doing all the things that they can be doing. And I think that protocol is something that's really, very much needed and wanted. I could not tell you a snapshot of what California really looks like or the restrictions county by county. And there was an article that alluded to this in terms of, say, Napa tasting rooms. There were perceptions from some consumers that, all Napa was closed, while in fact, you could still go outside and have a wine tasting outside. And coupled with that, in addition, I was in Sonoma last weekend, mid-July, and it was very interesting because while I was there, I was at 2 wineries. No food was required, but I go to a brewery, and guess what? Food is required, not just any kind of food, a meal. And that is really something that's kind of unfortunate because it was something that I thought, wow, why does a brewery require that and a winery does not? And I think that's because there's mixed smoke signals, so to speak, from city, county, state officials, and that's what really things are. Why does a winery not need to do that and a brewery does? Well, brewery maybe because, no, I don't know. I have no idea. And it doesn't make any sense. And the brewers are really, I think, frustrated by that, and rightly so. So as long as they can be serving outside, which I think is fine, and you have your coverings and doing all the appropriate safety measures, you should be able to do that. And I think it's really important that people are allowed to do that. So I think imagine if you are a brew pub aficionado, you can only go to one brew pub basically in one afternoon, because unless you're gonna have 2 or 3 meals, if you visit 2 to 3 small brewers, nobody's gonna do that, or nobody can do that, or nobody will be wanting to do that. So that's how we need to support, I think, as a city, county, government entities need to look at that a little more carefully. Which leads me to my next subject. How do we look at this in terms of DTC, direct to consumer? How do we look at this in terms of how bars are trying to still sell, their wares or their particular products, drinks outside the door? I'll never forget when I was in Verona. I was at a sit-down bar and it was takeaway cocktails, and I thought, oh, I'll never see this ever again. I snapped a photo because I thought it was, just so unique and interesting, and something that I thought, oh my gosh, this is never will I see that again, and never will I ever say that, because it happened in a way that I did not obviously wish that to happen. It's going to be really hard for these businesses to survive, guess what, the winter time. If there are, no any sort of vaccine, which probably will not happen this year, potentially not next year, it really begs the question: what can we do to help support these businesses? So it begins also with the 40,000 alcohol beverage control laws on the books. That is really crazy in the United States. So that means city, county, as well as special governmental units in terms of states have so many different laws that govern wine, beer, and spirits. Now, this is a holdover of post-prohibition. So states and counties and special governmental units, entities could make up, any sort of rules that they wanted, and that was just based on state-by-state requirements or state-by-state, allowances to doing that. So I think that's really one thing that I think is kind of needs a absolute review and needs to be brought down in terms of so many complicating rules. There are so many rules, say in Ohio. If you live in Ohio, you know what I mean. There's 100% markup between each of the 3 tiers. And so that's really very, very strange. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure why they're state-run stores when it should be really, if we're so believing in the marketplace, it should be the marketplace that serves that. So the reason state-run stores still exist is that they make a lot of money. And think about it. If you're in Pennsylvania, where are you going to go? So I think those need to really be harmonized. Now this brings me to DTC producers. So not all DTC businesses are the same, and that is the rules that apply to them are that you have a confounding number of applications and licenses that are required to sell across state borders, which is kind of crazy in a way, because if do you need, let's say there's say 39 states you can sell products from one state to another. But let's just focus in on wine. So I reached out to a few producers, I think in Maryland and New Jersey, and I said, can I get a bottle of this? There was nothing on there that said I couldn't, as a California citizen, or as a California resident, I could not do that because those producers didn't have a California license. Yes, that's just a little crazy, especially when these producers need business in all the states you can actually ship to. So that needs to really change a lot, and I hope that'll happen. Am I confident that's going to happen? Probably not. I think there's going to be some relaxing, but I think they're going to go back to the way they were if there's ever a cure. If we're not out of this crisis, then there will have to be changes. If we are going to exit this crisis in the near, 6 months or so, there will probably be no changes. If there's, this situation 2 years or 3 years from today, we might have to have changes. And I hope that does happen. I hope it happens regardless of, how long the lockdown is in place. So next comment is, I see things in wine business or drinks business, and as well as wine business daily, which I get emails in July, was U.S. off-premise wine sales up 27.6%. So drinks business off-premise wine sales said that in the U.S. it is up 27.6% during the COVID-19 crisis. So Wine America has said that the rise in off-premise and direct-to-consumer is making up for the loss in the restaurant sales. I'm not so sure that's actually true, and I'd like to see that report. I'm looking for that report. Haven't found it yet, but I think it's important to look at that because simply there are 408 million cases sold per year in the United States. Now, 77 million is on-premise, i.e. restaurants and bars. That's a huge number. I don't think today that both off-premise and DTC have made up for that. Now, there were sales earlier in the year. Sure, that's taken into account. It's a very slow time of the year, especially January and a bit of February. And then you get to the rest of the year when most of the restaurants are closed down. And so what will happen, say the last part of the year? Probably in the same situation we are today, unless there's some miracle. And so I think that's a really interesting factor. Now, Governor Newsom has announced that there's going to be some other measures in place for agricultural workers. So I think that really means a lot of big implications and complications, which I think really means higher prices. Now, I think for safety, that's great. I hope that's really taken into account. I don't think it's going to stop the wine industry from making wine. It's a unique product, so unlike, say, spirits or beer, you can produce year-round. When it comes to wine, you have one opportunity per year to produce wine grapes and to vinify that per once a year. So that'll be very interesting to see if that's impacted. I don't think anybody's going to look back in 2020 and say, oh my gosh, I want to remember that year or reflect on that. Most people are probably want to forget the year, if at all possible, me included. But ultimately, I hope the vintage is 2020 is spectacular, because I think we all need it, not just the producers but the consumers, and so I think that's going to be the other part of it. So I also look at this in terms of the end of the year, when most parts of the country will have winter and we won't be able to sit outside and to enjoy food, and I don't think that we'll have the ability to have heat lamps, and if we do, I'm not sure we're going to enjoy that experience. So that'll be very interesting to see what that looks like, say, 6 months from today. Now, as a traveler myself, I generally have traveled, every single month, and I've gone somewhere extensive and really enjoyed it. And this year, I've been lucky to have been out of the country, Italy, and Germany, as well as into New Mexico this year. And so I was very, very fortunate to do that. I was hoping to travel more, so I'm being very careful and judicious about it. There's not a lot of places I can go to. I'm very cautious to visit friends and family because I don't want to pick up anything along the way. So I don't want to do that either. So I do miss traveling. And part of me thinks, what will it be like to travel again? What will it be like to go transatlantic or trans-Pacific? There's a lingering thought that won't happen for a very, very long time. I don't want to say that will never happen, because if, say, there's no vaccine in the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years, life will have to go on somehow at some level, and maybe it's some spacesuit equivalent. That'll be interesting to see what we come up with, if we come up with anything at all. So I think it's going to be a world where we have to keep moving forward, keep looking forward. My July wine reviews, I quoted myself because I thought it was a pretty good quote. So one thing I said about wine is, while wine is about the present, wine is hope in and for the future. I think that's completely true and evident, and I compare that to, say, you look at the former Iron Curtain countries producing wine. That's a very different it's a very different experience in terms of, say, where we are today. But the analogy is that while there were communist regimes and they were still producing wine, but you still had, heritage grapes, indigenous grapes still being grown, because there was that desire, there was that will for that to happen. And so while I can't make that exact comparable, because I don't think it's sensitive to do so. So people have religio-spiritual traditions about wine. There is culinary aspects to wine in terms of, for me, I always have a glass of wine for my dinner every single day. I just have to. There's no way I could not do that. And so I think there's those aspects as well. But ultimately, I just wanted to do this video because I think it's really important. I don't want to tire you, my audience member, somebody who watches me, my subscriber, from not watching me, because it's all about product reviews. And I'm coming up on my 3,000th video. Probably won't happen until, I'm guessing, late August, September. My 500,000 click will happen, I was hoping, this month in July 2020. It'll probably be August of 2020, which I'm thinking first, second week. And so I'm excited about that, and hopefully my 2,000 subscribers. So at least this period of time will be good in that respect. So thank you for watching. Stay connected. Enjoy your wine. Please leave your questions and comments down below. Also, you can leave them on the social medias that I'm on, that you're probably on as well, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and WordPress. Now, down below is a subscribe button. If you haven't hit that button already, please consider doing so, and you'll see the latest videos that I'm producing. And grazie to you, and I appreciate that. And if you have, thank you so much. And also, there's a like button there. If you like this video, please give a like. And also, we can have a conversation between videos. I'm going to be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and WordPress. You'll find me on my podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Salute.